Hey everyone, welcome back to the Voiceover booth. My name is Josh Risser, and I'm going to give you a behind the scenes peek into how I narrate another short story. Today, we're going to be narrating The Romance of a Busy Broker by O. Henry. So let's pull up the script and we'll check it out. This story has 3 characters in it. The last one we did was just a narrative story with no real characters, just a narrator. So this one, we have a little bit of dialogue. I thought that would be interesting to cover how I do dialogue when there isn't a whole lot going on. So there's some interaction between the 3 characters. There's really no need for me to do very distinct voices. So what you can do is think about qualities of the character and how that might make them speak. Those qualities come out in your cadence and in your tone, and they come off less as trying to do a voice and more as trying to do a character, which is what you really want. You don't want to do anything that'll pull someone out of the experience, but you want them to be able to tell, especially when 2 characters are speaking to each other, that there are 2 different characters here. And you can do that in a couple of ways. How I've done it here is I thought about the setting. So we are in New York at a 1920-ish stockbroker's office. The guy's really busy, so I don't think we're in the Great Depression. I think we're in the roaring 20s here. We have our main character, Harvey Maxwell. He is the guy who runs the office, so he's very busy. He's maybe abrupt because he's overwhelmed with all the stuff going on, and you'll see that proves to be true. He's going to be a little quick. His first line is, "Good morning, pitcher." So he's going to be, it says, with a snappy, "Good morning, pitcher." I'm going to make sure that I am quick with his dialogue, make sure he's serious. And if you change your face, I'm going to furrow my brow a little bit, and that will impart character without having to, "Good morning, pitcher," change your voice too much. Then you have his clerk, pitcher, who, maybe he works the front desk. He seems to kind of run the office while Harvey does all the work of the stock trading, the hard work. So pitcher, he's a little more relaxed. Maybe he's a little more reserved and quiet. He doesn't have the aggressiveness of Harvey. So that'll make a big difference. And so I think for pitcher, I'm mostly just going to stick to something that sounds like dialogue, but is just my voice. I'm not going to try to do anything else. And then we have Miss Leslie, who is a female stenographer, and our other character. And I put her at the end because she doesn't have to be as distinct as maybe Harvey and pitcher. If you get more characters, then maybe you have to do a little bit more. But for this, 3 characters, not that big of a deal. I've also gone through and assigned each of my characters a color. If we scroll down in the script to where the dialogue starts to show up, you can start to see why you might want to color them if it doesn't take too long. Because you might not know who is speaking until you get to the answered pitcher. Here it's he did, answered pitcher. The previous line does tell you Miss Maxwell is speaking to Mr. Pitcher, so you might know, but this will just help your brain switch earlier without having to think about the context. Then you can think about your character as you're delivering the line rather than potentially missing a character shift because you're so involved in all of the work that comes in with reading the script, interpreting it, and then acting it basically in the moment. So we can scroll down, you can see I've gone through and highlighted the lines. And then down here it gets really important because we have a back and forth dialogue between pitcher and Maxwell. So let's get into it, and you can kind of see how it works in action. Got my project set up in Reaper already. Let me get that on the screen for you. And so you can see me, and you might be able to see how my face will change as we're doing things. Oh, one more thing. When it comes to female characters, I obviously do not have a voice that will pass. It'll get really high, and it'll sound ridiculous, and you don't want that to happen. So I obviously don't have a voice that'll pass for a female character. This isn't a full cast, so I can't hire a female voiceover artist to do the work for me. So what I'm going to do is I'll just lighten up my voice a little bit. You want to be careful not to make it too airy and stereotypical. A lot of times it's "Hi there." It gets all airy, and you don't want that happening. That sounds dumb. Treat it with some respect. it's going to be more distinct from Maxwell. So I might go up and register a little bit, add a little extra air to it. I think it'll be just fine. And the first thing you want to do, as always, is we are going to we're going to record the title, and we're going to record the author, and narrated by your name. The Romance of a Busy Broker by O. Henry. Narrated by Josh Risser. All right, so we got that laid down. What I like about Reaper, by the way, I don't know if you think I can repeat that forever. Non-destructive editor. So if you mess something up and you don't like how you said narrated by, and you cut it out, but then later you're like, well, I'll just put it back. It's already there. It's always there. Things like Audacity, they don't have that. They're destructive editors, and so I find non-destructive editors very handy in saving your work. Has definitely saved me on a couple of occasions. Headphones on so I can hear myself. Let's make sure it's working for all of us. The Romance of a Busy Broker by O. Henry. Narrated by Josh Risser. All right, sounds good. Good enough. This script, or story, has kind of a tough start. Because we've got Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker. You've got a parenthetical right after one word, and then a parenthetical of the parenthetical, which is not really, I guess, not a parenthetical. It's a title of Harvey Maxwell. So it's Harvey Maxwell, broker. So what you got to be careful with when you do these kind of narrations, opening up, is you can't hit it too hard and run it all together. You have to let everything have its own space. To do that, you got to make sure you're not like Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker. You don't want to slam it all together because it's going to sound really confusing to a listener. So take your time with it, and as with always, give everything its own space and respect. All right, so let's roll. Let's do it here. Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker, allowed a mild look of it. That didn't make any sense. Let's start over. Allowed a look of mild interest. Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker, allowed a look of mild interest and surprise to visit his usually expressionless countenance when his employer briskly entered at 9:30 in company with his young lady stenographer. I'm going to listen back to that, just to make sure it sounds like it makes sense. Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker, allowed a look of mild interest and surprise to visit his usually expressionless countenance when his employer briskly entered at 9:30 in company with his young lady stenographer. All right, I'm going to add a couple extra beats in here. Don't be afraid to edit the script if you can, because it kind of felt like it was all running together. Felt like I might have been a little fast. Let's try again. Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker, allowed a look of... Gotta say the right words. Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker, allowed a look of mild interest and surprise to visit his usually unexpressionless countenance. One more time. Pitcher, confidential clerk in the office of Harvey Maxwell, broker, allowed a look of mild interest and surprise to visit his usually expressionless countenance when his employer briskly entered at 9:30 in company with his young lady stenographer. With a snappy, "Good morning, Pitcher," Maxwell dashed at his desk. Dashed at his desk. Dash. Get that H in there. Let's see how the voice sounds. With a snappy, "Good morning, Pitcher," Yeah, so that was quick. Might just try one more time, since it's the start of that same sentence that I goofed up. So we'll roll here. With a snappy, "Good morning, Pitcher," Maxwell dashed at his desk as though he were intending to leap over it, and then plunged into the great heap of letters and telegrams waiting there for him. The young lady, all the words matter. The young lady had been Maxwell's stenographer for a year. She was beautiful in a way that was decidedly unstenographic. She forewent the pomp of the alluring pompadour. She wore no chains, bracelets, or lockets. She had not the air of being about to accept an invitation to luncheon. Her dress was gray and plain, but it fitted her figure with fidelity and discretion. In her neat black turban hat was the gold-green wing of a macaw. On this morning, she was softly and shyly radiant. Her eyes were dreamily bright, her cheeks genuine peach blow, her expression a happy one, tinged with reminiscence. Pitcher, still mildly curious, noted a difference in her ways this morning. Instead of going straight into the adjoining room, where her desk was, she lingered, slightly irresolute, in the outer office. Once she moved over by Maxwell's desk, near enough for him to be aware of her presence. Okay, little goof up on that one, but this is where beats and context matters. The way I read it was once she moved over by Maxwell's desk. And it might make sense, you might understand what it is you're trying to say, but the listener might not hear it right. So that once probably should have a little beat after it, because we're explaining like, once she moved over by Maxwell's desk. It's one word that leads into another thought, and they're not combined. So let's see what we got here. Let's see where I am. She lingered, slightly irresolute, in the outer office. Oh, I heard a noise. Listen. Irresolute in the outer office. Right here. Outer office. I don't know if you can hear it. The outer office. There's a weird background noise. I don't know if it's a mouth click or maybe I moved and my mic picked up my shirt or something. So let's go right here. See what we got here. She lingered. That's kind of right in the middle. Instead of going straight into the adjoining room. Okay, so now we're going to do the punch and roll thing where we play a little bit so I can hear it, get the pacing right, and then come in when it matters. So we're going to start right here in instead of going straight into the adjoining room. And then I can probably land this line a little bit better. So still mildly curious, noted a difference in her ways this morning. Instead of going straight into the adjoining room where her desk was, she lingered, slightly irresolute, in the outer office. Once she moved over by Maxwell's desk, near enough for him to be aware of her presence. The machine sitting at that desk was no longer a man. It was a busy New York broker, moved by buzzing wheels and uncoiling springs. "Well, what is it? Anything?" asked Maxwell sharply. I want to listen to asked. I feel like I gobbled that word up. "Well, what is it? Anything?" asked Maxwell sharply. That sounds okay. Asked Maxwell I might just do it again, though. So let's just punch in. Broker, moved by buzzing wheels and uncoiling springs. "Well, what is it? Anything?" asked Maxwell sharply. His open mail lay like a bank of stage snow on his crowded desk. His keen gray eye, impersonal and brusque, flashed upon her half impatiently. "Nothing," answered the stenographer, moving away with a little smile. "Mr. Pitcher," she said to the confidential clerk, "did Mr. Maxwell say anything yesterday about engaging another stenographer?" "He did," answered Pitcher. "He told me to get another one. I notified the agency yesterday afternoon to send over a few samples this morning. It's 9:45 o'clock, and not a single picture hat or piece of pineapple chewing gum has showed up yet." "I will do the work as usual, then," said the young lady, "until someone comes to fill the place." And she went to her desk at once and hung the black turban hat with the gold-green macaw wing in its accustomed place. I want to show you what I was saying earlier about non-destructive versus destructive editors. So, back up here. "Well, what is it? Anything?" asked Maxwell sharply. I feel like I nailed that line the first time, but then I just recorded over the top of it. In Audacity, you would have lost that. It's right here. "Well, what is it? Anything?" But since it was tied to the previous recording, Reaper remembers stuff because it exists in another file. And every time you hit record, it creates a new file with that information, and it adds it as a segment on this timeline here. So in this case, I can go back here to the one I recorded prior, moved by buzzing wheels and uncoiling springs. And then I can drag it out. And here it is. "Well, what is it? Anything?" So there's a little bit of a more delay, like he's just kind of coming to, and he's realizing someone's here and I should figure out what they want. Versus this one, well, what is it? Anything? Where he knows they're there and he's just abruptly like, what are you doing here? I like the first one. But I also like asked Maxwell sharply. Asked sounds good there. So what you can do is get rid of that one, drag it over, drag this back, and overlap it so you got a little crossfade so it's smooth across. And now, well, what is it? Anything? Asked Maxwell sharply. Sounds good to me. We'll jump ahead. So let's see where we are now. I think I'm down in here. Let's listen to the dialogue really quick between Leslie and Pitcher and just make sure that it sounds different enough. Okay, here we go. Mr. Pitcher, she said to the confidential clerk, did Mr. Maxwell say anything yesterday about engaging another stenographer? He did, answered Pitcher. He told me to get another one. I think they sounded different enough, and they don't seem so distinct that I won't be able to just recreate it on the fly later. So what I'll do is I'll put a little marker here with M, it's the shortcut key in Reaper, and we'll drop Leslie. Now I can go back to that quickly and be able to, so if we're later on in the file, recording, I can click here, it'll jump me back to Leslie. Pitcher. I can hear her immediately, just to get it in my brain, and I don't have to waste a lot of time. Here's Pitcher. Did, answered Pitcher. He told me to get another one. It just sounds like me, so we'll just drop that just in case, another marker, and we'll edit it to say Pitcher. Cool. And now we're good to go. He who has been denied the spectacle of a busy Manhattan broker. That's where we're going next. So punch in just so I get the timing right, but there needs to be a break here, like an extra long break, just because we're kind of shifting the scene a little bit. And that'll give the listener's brain time to forget about the previous scene and catch up to the next one. Turban hat with the gold-green macaw wing in its accustomed place. He who has been denied the spectacle of a busy Manhattan broker during a rush of business is handicapped for the profession of anthropology. The poet sings of the crowded hour of glorious life. The broker's hour is not only crowded, but the minutes and seconds are hanging to all the straps and packing, both front and rear platforms. No. So, this is a weird line. The minutes and seconds are hanging to all the straps and packing both the front and rear platforms. So this is, I might just throw like a little M dash here so you all think I'm AI. And it should be an M dash, but it didn't change. Just so I know that this is one part of the phrase and is the start of the second part of the phrase. Yeah, so they're not hanging to all the straps and packing. They're hanging to all the straps and packing both front and rear platforms. So we'll just pick it up right at the broker's hour. We'll punch in. The poet sings of the crowded hour of glorious life. The broker's hour is not only crowded, but the minutes and seconds are hanging to all the straps and packing both front and rear platforms. And this day was Harvey Maxwell's busy day. The ticker began to reel out jerkily its fitful coils of tape. The desk telephone had a chronic attack of buzzing. Men began to throng into the office. The word throng threw me off, so I think I hesitated on it. At least my brain felt like it did, so we'll just pick it up right here. Coils of tape. The desk telephone had a chronic attack of buzzing. Men began to throng into the office and call him over the railing, jovially, sharply, viciously, excitedly. Messenger boys ran in and out with messages and telegrams. The clerks in the office jumped about like sailors during a storm. Even Pitcher's face relaxed into something resembling animation. On the exchange there were hurricanes and landslides and snowstorms and glaciers and volcanoes, and those elemental disturbances were reproduced in miniature in the broker's offices. Maxwell shoved his chair against the wall and transacted business after the manner of a toe dancer. He jumped from ticker to phone, from desk to door, with the trained agility of a harlequin. In the midst of this growing and important stress, the broker became suddenly aware of a high-rolled fringe of golden hair under a nodding canopy of velvet and ostrich tips, an imitation sealskin sack, and a string of beads as large as hickory nuts ending near the floor with a silver heart. There was a self-possessed young lady connected with these accessories, and Pitcher was there to construe her. "Lady from the stenographer's agency to see about the position?" said Pitcher. Maxwell turned half around, with his hands full of papers and ticker tape. "What position?" he asked with a frown. "Position of stenographer," said Pitcher. "You told me yesterday to call them up and have one sent over this morning." "You are losing your mind, Pitcher," said Maxwell. "Why should I have given you any such instructions? Miss Leslie has given perfect satisfaction during the year she's been here. The place is hers as long as she chooses to retain it. There's no place open here, madam. Countermand that order with the agency, Pitcher, and don't bring any more of 'em in here." The silver heart left the office, swinging and banging itself independently against the office furniture as it indignantly departed. Pitcher seized a moment to remark to the bookkeeper that the old man seemed to get more absent-minded and forgetful every day of the world. The rush and pace of business grew fiercer and faster. On the floor, they were pounding half a dozen stocks in which Maxwell's customers were heavy investors. Orders to buy and sell were coming and going as swift as the flight of swallows. Some of his own holdings were imperiled, and the man was working like some high-geared, delicate, strong machine, strung to full tension, going at full speed, accurate, never hesitating, with the proper word and decision and act ready and prompt as clockwork. Stocks and bonds, loans and mortgages, margins and securities. Here was a world of finance, and there was no room in it for the human world or the world of nature. When the luncheon hour drew near, there came a slight lull in the uproar. Maxwell stood by his desk with his hands full of telegrams and memoranda. Okay, I was thinking about something that I wanted to say, and my brain was like, "You're not thinking about the script here." So what I wanted to say is we've got a shift in tone here, and they come up all the time. And what you can do, in this case, we're talking about the speed and the busyness with which the broker's office has in it during busy hours. You may have noticed my pauses were tighter. I wasn't speaking too fast, but I was speaking very directly. Like if we listen back here, stocks and bonds, loans and mortgages, margins, everything's abrupt. Stocks and bonds, loans and mortgages, margins. The breaths are tighter, and the pauses between the phrases are shorter. And that's to kind of give you the feeling of what's going on, what we're describing within the narration. And then the luncheon hour drew near, and there came a slight lull in the uproar. And as that was happening, I felt my own pace and everything open up and slow down. And that's what you want to do to kind of give a little push and pull to the narration and keep the listener's ears engaged. So let's see where we are here. I goofed up the word memoranda, and there was no room in it for the human world or the world of nature. All right, so let's listen to the luncheon line. I might have liked it. Okay, what do we got here? That's a full second. I'm just going to maybe cut a little bit out. When the luncheon hour drew near, there came a slight lull in the uproar. Maybe I'll try to drag that out as the sentence completes to give it a sense of like time slowing down. There was no room in it for the human world or the world of nature. When the luncheon hour drew near, there came a slight lull. There was no room in it for the human world or the world of nature. When the luncheon hour drew near, there came a slight lull in the uproar. Maxwell stood by his desk with his hands full of telegrams and memoranda, with a fountain pen over his right ear and his hair hanging in disorderly strings over his forehead. His window was open, for the beloved janitress Spring had turned on a little warmth through the waking registers of the earth. And through the window came a wandering, perhaps a lost odor, a delicate, sweet odor of lilac that fixed the broker for a moment immovable. For this odor belonged to Miss Leslie. It was her own and hers only. The odor brought her vividly, almost tangibly before him. The world of finance dwindled suddenly to a speck, and she was in the next room 20 steps away. "By George, I'll do it now," said Maxwell, half aloud. "I'll ask her now. I wonder I didn't do it a long time ago." No, I wonder I didn't do it long ago. Let's see. So this is inner dialogue, sort of, kind of talking to himself. So It sounds a little bit different than as if you were talking to someone else, but you don't have to think too much about that. If you know it, it should come out sort of like that. Let's see what I got. By George, I'll do it now. Too much of a beat there. Let's redo this whole dialogue line. Yeah. She was in the next room, 20 steps away. So before we do that, let's talk about the last couple of paragraphs. We're talking about Miss Leslie. Maxwell's obviously in love with her. And so I tried to kind of slow down and impart a little more emotion to the voice, just so we're kind of speaking about Maxwell's feelings here. So let's see how it sounds. The odor brought her vividly, almost tangibly before him. The world of finance dwindled suddenly to a speck. So if you listen, we're hitting the words that are color words, vividly, tangibly before him, suddenly to a speck. We're just trying to make it a little more flowery. No pun intended with the lilac. Let's see what we got here. And she was in the next room, 20 steps away. I might recut that line too, to be like, she was in the next room, 20 steps away. Just like this is so amazing, and she's just right there. And so because next Maxwell's talking about like he needs to go talk to her. So like he's suddenly overcome. So let's see what we get for him. The world of finance dwindled suddenly to a speck, and she was in the next room, 20 steps away. By George, I'll do it now, said Maxwell half aloud. I'll ask her now. I wonder I didn't do it long ago. He dashed into the inner office with the haste of a short trying to cover. He charged upon the desk of the stenographer. She looked up at him with a smile. A soft pink crept over her cheek, and her eyes were kind and frank. Maxwell leaned one elbow on her desk. He still clutched fluttering papers with both hands, and the pen was above his ear. I almost said also. That's not right. Which is right here. One elbow on her desk. He still clutched fluttering papers with both hands, and the pen was above his ear. Miss Leslie, he began hurriedly, I have but a moment to spare. I want to say something in that moment. Will you be my wife? I haven't had time to make love to you in the ordinary way, but I really do love you. Talk quick, please. Those fellows are clubbing the stuffing out of Union Pacific. Oh, what are you talking about? Exclaimed the young lady. She rose to her feet and gazed upon him round-eyed. Don't you understand? Said Maxwell restively. I want you to marry me. I love you, Miss Leslie. I wanted to tell you, and I snatched a minute when things had slackened up a bit. They're calling me for the phone now. Tell them to wait a minute, Pitcher. Won't you, Miss Leslie? The stenographer acted very queerly. At first, she seemed overcome with amazement. Then tears flowed from her wondering eyes. And then she smiled sunnily through them, and one of her arms slid tenderly about the broker's neck. I know now, she said softly. It's this old business that has driven everything else out of your head for the time. I was frightened at first. Don't you remember, Harvey? We were married last evening at 8 o'clock in the little church around the corner. And there's the twist. They're already married. He's just so busy he can't keep track of things, and we can all relate to that. All right, so let's just listen back one more time to Maxwell here. Pitcher, won't you, Miss Leslie? The stenographer acted. I don't know if I like that line. Won't you, Miss Leslie? It should be like, won't you, Miss Leslie? Like a real question. Didn't really sound like that, so let's go back. Punch it in again. Slackened up a bit. They're calling me for the phone now. Tell them to wait a minute, Pitcher. Won't you, Miss Leslie? I don't know if that sounded right. Felt weird. Tell them to wait a minute, Pitcher. Won't you, Miss Leslie? That's all right. That's all right. See how it sounds in They're calling me for the phone now. Tell them to wait a minute, Pitcher. Won't you, Miss Leslie? The stenographer acted very queerly. At first, she seemed overcome with amazement. Then tears flowed from her wondering eyes. And then she smiled sunnily through them. All right. So I think we're pretty good. I don't want to put you through the rest of the editing process because the next bit is to just go back through, listen to the whole thing again, and make sure dialogue sounds good. You said all the right words, caught a lot of them, but you see what happens. And that the characters are distinct enough where it matters. Also, you can make sure there's not long pauses or anything that might pull the listener out of it. Because really all of this is in service to the story and in respect for the listener's time and attention. They're giving you their attention, so you got to think about how you're using that attention and whether or not you can keep it, because that is very important as a narrator. Now, with that said, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So I'll go through and edit this, and subscribe if you want to hear just this without all the commentary and jibber jabber, and we'll catch you in the next video.